Hey there, happy July. Today is July 1st, 2025, and that means that it is the final month of the Palo Alto Networks fiscal year 2025. And it is also the last month that you can take the Palo Alto Networks Certified Network Security Engineer, the well-known PCNSE certification. This certification has existed for well over a decade. I believe it's been about 15 years. I posted about that on Reddit. And many of you might be wondering how you can prove your Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall skills and knowledge now that the PCNSE is going away. There's been a lot of posts about this. Palo Alto Networks Education Services posted their own opinion on this, which I'll read in this video. And I'm going to give you my take and give you some advice on what you can do to show your next generation firewall expertise. So I hope you find this interesting, and let's continue with the video. Obviously, a well-known certification going away can be challenging for many people. And a lot of you are wondering, what is going to replace the PCNSE? I see this question nonstop on my YouTube videos ever since I started over 6 months ago talking about the new certifications. I've seen this on Reddit, tons and tons of questions. I feel like this question gets asked almost every single week on Reddit. And I'm not the only one who's noticed this. The Palo Alto Networks Education Services LinkedIn page even posted 2 months ago an answer to this question of what is replacing the PCNSE. So let me just read their answer and we can expand upon it a little bit in this video. So it says, now to answer what is replacing the PCNSE, it is important to note that the legacy certifications focused heavily on product knowledge validation, whereas our new framework revolves around job-ready skills validation. Therefore, there is no direct equivalence between the old and new certifications. So that's the key sentence right there. There is no direct equivalence between the old and new certifications. Basically, a very fancy, well-written way of saying there ain't no replacement. There is no replacement to PCNSE. You have to kind of completely reorient the way that you're thinking about these certifications. And I think that's probably a pretty accurate answer. But you know me, I'm big into the data sheets. I don't really believe anything until I've proven it with data sheets or with specific information. So let me pull up here, just for our purposes, let me pull up the data sheet for PCNSE. So you see here, I have the data sheet, which has the blueprint of the exam. I have that right here. And if I go down, this is for the PCNSE, as you can see here. So if I go down, you'll see something like identify how Palo Alto Networks products work together, determine and assess appropriate interface or zone types for various environments. Now, what's interesting about that is if you go into, for example, the next generation firewall engineer, so I also have that data sheet here. Close this. So you'll see I have here configure interfaces and configure zones. And here I have determine and assess appropriate interface or zone types. Okay, interesting. So let's keep going. Decryption types. Let's skip that one for now. Look, enforce user ID. If I go back here, let's just say I search for user ID. Okay, I have configure user ID. Here in the next generation firewall engineer. But now let's also look at the new exam, the new certification for network security analyst. And you can see it actually right there. And you can see create and apply security policies, including user ID. Interesting. Okay. So that's enforcing user ID. So you need the policies, right? And you need to be able to configure it to enforce it. All right, let's keep going. Multi-vsys. So here, configure vsys. Okay, interesting. And then if we go on, you see management profiles. That one's actually not covered in either of those. But we do have security profiles. Okay, that's professionals. Create and apply security profiles. Interesting, right? And then there's specific ones here as well. So I kind of got this hypothesis that maybe PCNSE is really being kind of broken up into these two new certifications, the next generation firewall engineer and the network security analyst. And I actually helped work on the network security analyst, which I will make another video about in the future. If you haven't noticed, I haven't made a video in a while. That's mostly because I've been working on an incident response exercise with National Guard, but that's neither here nor there. So let's take a look at these next generation firewalls. So you can see here, part 1 is PAN-OS networking configuration, then device settings, and then integration and automation. So it's kind of like configuring the firewall almost from like a device management and network security, almost thinking from more of like an infrastructure perspective, and then network security, objects, policies, management and operations, and troubleshooting. So that's more of like the security administrator role. So someone who's less thinking about let's think about the infrastructure and the networking and more thinking about the actual security policies. So it seems like they took a lot of what was in PCNSE and they broke it up based on those two roles, more the network administrator versus the security administrator. So what I did is I actually broke up, you can see here, and I'll put this in the description, but I broke up, I went and I did a mapping. As you can see, I call it mapping in this sheet here. Nope. One. All right. And I broke up each of these. So I went down each PCNSE item, and then I identified if there was a corresponding next generation firewall engineer item or NetSec analyst item. And you can see there is a lot of coverage. It's certainly not complete and not perfect. Troubleshooting is completely different. I'll show you that in a second. But it does cover a lot of it. The thing to also note here is there were several sections within these, the NetSec analyst and next generation firewall engineer that were not covered in PCNSE. One example was SD-WAN. There was a lot of SD-WAN covered, as well as other new capabilities like Internet of Things, IoT security that Palo Alto Networks now offers, so configuring those profiles. So what you can see is that really Palo Alto Networks, as it's grown and the products have become more comprehensive across the security platform, they've had to really break up what traditionally was the PCNSE into different roles, because there are different roles involved in managing Palo Alto Networks products now, because it's not just a single box that provides network security. there's a whole ecosystem and set of services that provide tons of different security capabilities. And so really this had to be broken up. The other thing is that dividing it up this way allows, and I've talked about this before, it kind of allows Palo Alto Networks to be more modular. And so as its technology changes, as it continues to grow and acquire capabilities and move in different directions, they're able to, these are called the specialist exams, they're able to sort of spin up or take down specialist exams based on where they're at. And so while PCNSE lasted for 15 years, some of these certifications might be more dynamic as the industry continues to change very, very rapidly. So what I would recommend if you are looking to show your firewall skills now would be to consider taking the next generation firewall engineer as well as the network security analyst. These together are basically, this is definitely an oversimplification, but they're basically make up the PCNSE. You'll basically show that not only can you manage the firewalls as a network administrator, a device administrator, someone who can get it all up and running, but you can also configure all of the security policies. The other important thing to consider is that network security analyst has a lot of Strata Cloud Manager in it. It covers a lot of Strata Cloud Manager, but Strata Cloud Manager, there's a lot of capabilities in there that is where the company is going, and there's going to be a lot of tools and things in there that you might want to consider knowing how to use anyway, and that really helps you understand how to take advantage of all of the security capabilities within the Palo Alto Networks, the entire ecosystem, but also including the firewalls. So that would be my suggestion. You are going to see a significant decrease in troubleshooting. A lot of that troubleshooting sections that I talked about are either just going to be covered within the associated section. For example, within PCNSE 6.7 is troubleshoot global protect. So some of that troubleshooting will just be covered in configure global protect, because when you configure it, you might need to be troubleshooting it. However, there is a troubleshooting section in network security analyst as well. So long-winded way of saying, if you really want to have the same level of prestige as the PCNSE, I recommend you try to go for both the next generation firewall engineer certification as well as the certification that I helped write the exam for, and that would be the network security analyst certification. I hope this helps those of you who were interested in taking the PCNSE, and I understand a lot of you are sad to see it go, but I do think that this certification framework will be a lot more comprehensive and a lot more malleable and adaptive for Palo Alto Networks as it continues to grow beyond just a firewall company and into a security portfolio and security platform company. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you disagree with me, feel free to put that in the comments. I'm very curious to hear everyone's feedback and what they think about this transition. Thank you for watching my video.